Hey peoples, how you doing? I'm back. For me, this is relatively soon because I take a while sometimes before I get some thoughts together. Um, I heard someone say the other day in regard to the whole Chalamet business that, um, well, everything's been said that can be said about that, I suppose. And I thought to myself, I don't think that's true. There's plenty of things that have occurred to me. Now, I'm not hearing people say it all. I think there's still plenty to talk about here. Some, I don't know, disclaimers, I suppose, before we get too heavy here. Um, on some level, this is what you get here for the 8 people who see it is sort of like what Andy Edwards does. Right. I'm a big fan of Andy Edwards, and I was actually doing what I'm doing probably around about the same time as Andy Edwards was doing what he was doing, but he hooked up, so good for Andy Edwards. But, the unscripted, and there's candor, and there's advantages to that. And the advantages being, I think, again, candor. And um, it feels more real. It is more real. It's fresher to get that, and there's so much that is polished and scripted these days. I think it's probably a very good thing to course correct and have more and of the unscripted. And I think it does resonate. I like it better. All sorts of reasons I could go down that road, but that's kind of what I do. And I think you should be able to extemporaneously speak. Now, the downside of doing something like this is there are all sorts of mistakes, right? There are going to be mistakes. But, you know, I'm a musical person and I'm a jazz person. At least that's a big part of my background. And having correct jazz is kind of oxymoronic. It's a process, and it's okay that there are mistakes. And it's fine because it means you're going for something. So I don't have a problem with someone coming out and just speaking extemporaneously. I'm fine with the mistakes because the upside is I feel that I'm getting something that is more honest. It's more direct. So that's kind of what you get here. So let's dive into Chalamet. Yeah, I think I want to start with him. I'll start with, I'm not even that crazy about him. I'm not saying this is an untalented guy, for instance, because there are things he clearly does well. But are there actors with greater range? Definitely. He's one of these humans, and it happens, um, where the big indifferent machine, meaning in this case, the business that surrounds it, much like there's a business of dance and there's a business of music, and the folks around them sit and go, oh, this is the next thing. And once that starts to happen, lovely, once that starts to happen, um, it can take off and people become a thing far in excess of what their actual talent, etc., is. And it's like a cult of personality thing. And it's happened again and again and again. I could think of a lot of examples. They become sort of iconic folks because people attach things to them. And it's true of many, many stars. In this time, Taylor Swift is clearly would make that list. Beyonce. And they usually have very loyal people around them who are convinced they're the greatest thing. Zendaya's got a bit of that. They're also usually very ambitious folks. Adele had some of that. People decide they become a symbol for a cause larger that maybe they weren't even looking to represent. They become part of something bigger that's going on in the culture. They don't have that much control over it. I'm trying to think of older examples. I think Brando had some of that, became this thing. Liz Taylor had some of that. Um, Streisand for sure became representative of, for a lot of people, of a, you know, it's the nature of stardom that has that, that can have that. And I think Chalamet wants to be one of those people. Now, in Chalamet, I give him some credit in that he states right up front that he wants all of that. He's an extremely ambitious guy. So, but I don't think he's an insane talent. And I think most of these people that we say, oh, they're the most incredible talented people, there is so much talent out there. And there are so many people that could be doing very much the same thing that just didn't get picked by the big indifferent machine to be that thing. I've seen this happen time and time again in various forms, in my case of music, where, you know, these aren't the best, necessarily the best players that become this thing, but they represent something that people want pushed in the culture, and business people get behind it, and it takes on momentum and a life of its own. And it's why when an actor will mention, they say, who's your favorite actor? And they mention someone you've never heard of. You go, oh, no, because when they're being honest, they have met somebody with unbelievable talent, but they never got the attention of the machine. It's wonderful when they say something like that because they're being straight. I know tons of musicians who would tell you the same thing, who would sit there and they've blown up for whatever reason. And to their credit, they sit there and go, this isn't about me. I got hooked up with some people and they decided this was a thing they were going to put. Yeah, happens. So I think people on the inside sort of know. Like, I think musicians all know, like, how great the studio players are and how they can play everything and do everything for just flat out playing. They're as good as it gets. Although you sit there and go, well, they don't make it, well, they're not necessarily pushing their own, they don't necessarily have an authorship, but they're machines that play. Okay, so it's a different conversation and go down that road. Anyway, back to Chalamet. So I'm not a big fan of Chalamet. In fact, I'm not crazy about him because I think I recognize him as being the product of ambition coupled with the machine going, yes, we like this guy. He's got a particular look and we're going to push it. Now, the quote that got him in big trouble, and it was, look, let's face it, it was not exactly artfully expressed, I think goes back some years. And that changes things too, because let's say, I heard 2019, it seems like he does look young. I don't know. But if in fact it is an older quote and it got left on the cutting room floor, then we should be saying, gee, I wonder why it did, because someone was protecting him and knew that wasn't going to be good PR. And for the same reasons it's being released, you wonder if someone hasn't got out for him. Okay, so the quote he didn't do a great job of expressing it. But more context, let's get more context. I think it's important to realize that Timothy Chalamet grew up in Manhattan Plaza on the West Side. I started to smile and chuckle about that because I had an aunt who was a dancer on Broadway through the 50s and 60s, and she married a property manager, originally a stagehand, then a property manager. And so I had a view into that world because they lived at Manhattan Plaza, and I saw a lot of theater world through the prism of knowing my aunt and uncle and their lives and so forth. It's not my world, but I had at least a view into it that probably a lot of folks wouldn't have. And Chalamet, I believe his mom was New York City Ballet, and I believe his sister was New York City Ballet. And that when he was growing up, I think he was in some classes to be on that track where he'd be, just like the kids who do the Nutcracker every year they're in training and so forth. Now, how far he went down that road, I have no idea. But I believe there was some of that, right? that he was connected to that. He certainly knew about it in a way that most kids growing up wouldn't. And I'm sure there were people who, because of his mom and because of his family, were like, oh, you're going to go into this as well. And so I think he's speaking about that, saying, yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So that's where I think that the comment comes in. He isn't saying per se that, that these forms are terrible forms, right? I think we've got to be really careful. Let's think about what he was actually saying here before we turn it into something else, because it fits into an argument. I listened to what he said and I go, oh, boy, and I think the minute he said it, he walked it back a little and realized, okay, that's probably going to get some people upset. But in the name of candor, he had a moment of candor. And I'd rather have that than someone knowing, oh, I must say the correct thing here and be very careful to say something that they didn't actually mean. I would prefer the honesty, even if it's something I disagree with. I prefer the candor. Because usually with candor, there's a kernel of truth there. Even if it's poorly expressed, even if you feel it's reductive or you feel what it is, whatever it is. I'll take the candor. So he says what he says, which is, if I'm hearing things correctly, he's saying, I don't want to be involved in those forms, which, don't speak to anybody, that no one checks out. I want to be involved in a form, or at least I feel like I have a better chance of touching more of the culture in film. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, more, I think that statement had even more validity than it does now, because I think film now is in trouble. I think everything's in trouble. But to say that, most people don't check out the opera and ballet. Most people don't. Like I said, I've spent my life into instrumental music, and a lot of that being jazz. I love classical music, big fan. Most of my time, I spend my time composing. I love composers. Fantastic. But I knew as a teenager, I knew in high school, and I went to Berkeley, and I knew it. We all knew at Berkeley, right? Frank Zappa, many, many years ago, called jazz the music of unemployment. It's a fantastic line, rooted in some truth. These are not popular forms. They affect very few people. It's a tremendous shame, but you'd be lying to yourself if you said, oh no, that's enormously popular and everyone's checking it out. It's clearly not. There was nothing factually wrong, really, with the statement. Again, you might not like the way it was expressed, and a lot of people are very thin-skinned and very sensitive. Okay, but fact has to be the most important part of this. Are you being overly reductive there? Well, maybe, but 2 + 2 still needs to equal 4. If we do, the math on these things, as it were, if you drill down, there's really, nothing all that inaccurate about what he said. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I want to be in a form where I think I'm going to have more cultural impact. What would be wrong with that? I don't want to be in high art. I don't have to be. I can understand why that would turn some people off. Go, no, I don't want to be in this cloistered, smaller world where I don't think I'm going to have that impact. I think I'd have greater impact in film. And I would say for the past 50, 60 more years, 70 years, 80 years, Film has had more impact by far than the ballet or the opera or the classical orchestra. All things I love. Look, I go to the ballet. I go to the opera. Anyway, so that's what Chalamet said, right? I'm not crazy about Chalamet. It was a little off the cuff and probably, it was a bad PR moment, right? It was all that. But he was saying an uncomfortable truth, but I think in essence, there's a lot of truth to it. And again, I'm in these forms. I love these forms, but making believe it's hugely popular when it's not, I don't think that's something I should be doing. Right? Gotta be honest with yourself about it. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that for a moment. Let's move on to the reaction. Now, the reaction, very upset people, struck me as they've got every right to sit there and say, look, we belong to a great tradition, something that we believe in very much. I think the best thing they could have said would be, it's a shame that there's so much truth in what he said. Wouldn't it be great? Isn't it a sad state of affairs? Maybe let's change the state of affairs so it's not like this, so that more people do know what we're doing over here. To make the claim, and this was again and again, I don't know what he's talking about. We're enormously popular. There was a lot of that. European opera companies, some of them I saw were we've got full houses. Things are great. We have enormous cultural impact. Everyone loves us. Maybe. I haven't been to a lot of European opera houses. I can't say. But I go to the Met in New York City, and I've been there on nights where there's a 60% crowd, maybe even worse. And it's depressing, and it's not good. I know the numbers are that since COVID, they've never recovered to their pre-COVID numbers. That I believe the numbers are 60 to 70 or 75%, somewhere in that neighborhood of what the pre-COVID numbers are. They've never recovered from COVID. And I think we all know all of these arts organizations need tremendous support to even survive at all. The number of orchestras in this country is not what it used to be. It's much, much, much smaller. The ballet, oh, thank God they do the Nutcracker every year, because they do the Nutcracker and tons of people show up, they make their money, and then they can try to put on the other things that they want to do. And these are spectacular forms of art, right? I don't think Chalamet was saying that they're not very wonderful forms of art. What he said was, nobody cares about them because people don't. We live in a culturally illiterate society. In fact, it may be even worse than that. In many cases, forget culturally illiterate, just try illiterate. People don't read. Most people, Hollywood is, and what's left of all of that is having to make film differently because people can't sit still for the length of a film. They don't have the attention span for that. The dumbing down has gotten so bad that we're at a point where we are too dumb to be able to pick up on any of the cool art stuff going on. How popular music, I've heard popular musicians talk about, singer-songwriters talk about, no one even writes a bridge anymore. Okay? That when the guy's writing the 3-chord songs are telling you things have gotten really simple compared to 3-chord songs, would you say there's a crisis? Yeah. So their argument that we're enormously popular, everyone loves us. I heard of the other one, somebody representing ballets, and they're going, well, he's in his bubble, And And of course, we're in our bubble too, and everyone's in their bubble. And then, after having stated that we're all in a bubble, which is true, then made it sound like, no, everyone loves what we do and we do the greatest stuff in the world. And it reminds you, it's almost like an argument that people make for nationalism, right? My country is the greatest in the world. Why? Because I'm in it. Okay, look, these forms are spectacular, but they've been built at this point. And although there are new works done, most people in it are, to some degree, a custodian of this great form. I like jazz. People say, there's new jazz. Yeah, and it's hard to even tell if it's jazz anymore and what it's becoming. It either holds on too much to the past or it becomes something unrecognizable, but it doesn't seem relevant. And I love this stuff. But I think these artistic movements are rooted to a particular part of time. So is there a lot there to be? It would be like saying, well, then it's, I'm not trying to say, well, get rid of the books, right? Because they only keep the books that were out this week. No. This stuff is fantastic. And I do think in some form it will survive. But it's not enormously popular, and none of this stuff is. And I don't think it's ever been less popular or had less cultural impact. It's not affecting people. People are so anesthetized, self-lobotomized, that they're not capable of being affected. They're not even affected by news. They're affected. They can't even believe the news. I mean, this is the degree to which this whole thing is sort of collapsed. So, I think we got to be aware of that, thinking that the world is definitely being changed daily by ballet. It's not. So that answer, that response to what people were seeing, that wasn't a good moment. I thought it reeked of self-importance. And that was a big part of the art. And the other one that I saw, this point was being made over and over again, was, oh, Timothy, you can't criticize other art forms. We are a great art form. We cannot be we are above criticism. You can't do that. That's against the rules, Never put down other art forms. Okay. In other words, if you have a problem with the particular artistic movements, like you would have problems with particular philosophical movements or anything else, that cannot be stated. These are the things we cannot say. Speaking of a lack of candor, why would you argue for that unless it's just self-serving? You're trying to protect yourself. I live in this place. I have joined a thing that cannot be correct. It's like the nationalism argument. It's a perfect thing. Why? Because I'm in it. No idea is above scrutiny, right? We can criticize anything and probably have a responsibility to do so. The conversation is how we get somewhere. Talking about it helps. Hurt. We want to suppress opinion. We want more opinion. Because if someone has a contrary opinion, great, now we can actually have a discussion, get into it. There may be a chance to educate some people. So the idea that these things cannot be, you can't criticize an art form. Really? We all have to support each other? No, we don't. Maybe we don't like what's going on in a particular art form. And let's look. These various movements are in separate camps for a reason. There are different philosophical underpinnings and different values. I'm not a fan of country music. What's wrong with you, Dave? How dare you put down? It doesn't need my help, or it's not going to be hurt by my condemnation. But a lot of the values that are part of the culture that makes up that music deals with country, nationalism, deals with local, what goes on in your little life, in your little town, in your little world. It's very parochial. I'm not into that. I think it's a problem. So it's asserting values that I fundamentally disagree with. You could be opposed to that. You could say, I don't want that in my life. I don't want that cultural influence in my life. Okay? If there are people out there who I'm sure don't like all sorts of classical music at all, because it probably broadens their perspective and it's the last thing they want to do, so they run away from it. I think it's a bad decision, but they have a really bad decision. But people get to make those decisions. You get to say, I don't agree with this philosophical, this political movement. You go, well, it's art, it's not politics. Art and politics are the same thing. Every artistic decision is based on values, and that every time we make a value judgment, that is politics. There's no separating the two, okay? They are hand in hand. All right, so yes, you can be opposed to artistic movements, think they're either a problem or they get something wrong. Same way I might say, I kind of dig Schopenhauer, and you go, no, he was full of, okay. That's okay. Those are good discussions to have. So it's okay to say, no, I reject another form. Now, he didn't say that. But what they're saying, people criticizing Chalamet, was there can be no criticism. These are perfect forms. They cannot be criticized. Look, the forms don't have to be criticized. He wasn't criticizing form. He just said no one listens to it. No one checks it out. No one watches it, which is essentially true. There was nothing incorrect in saying that. Well, he can't point out a thing that's true if it hurts us because we all have to support each other. We don't all have to support each other. We don't all support each other. Well, that's good form. And, in a civilized society, we must do the, oh, please. I'm very popular. People get a hold of me all the time. Whole thing's crazy. So there are 2 points made by the people attacking Chalamet. And I am a supporter of ballet and opera and jazz and orchestral music and all of these forms. But that reasoning was bad reasoning. They should do better. If they're that thin-skinned and they're that sensitive and they're that quickly offended, wow. Don't do that. That's a problem. You need a thicker skin. This was an opportunity to talk about it. Instead of reacting to it and denying it, a guy who's basically, again, not well expressed, but what he said was essentially true. I saw one person who made a great comment. Guy I believe in the opera world. I can't recall exactly who it is, and I don't think I could find it if I tried. But the comment essentially was, look, these aren't necessarily, we don't belong to popular forms. These aren't necessarily popular forms. But if you have a problem, if you don't like that, because what Chalamet said was essentially true, how do you fight against that? And he said, well, vote. Be upset with governments. Look for better education and arts funding. And that's exactly where I was going with this. I'm going to be in Florence, I think, sometime this spring into the early summer, because my son wants to check out lots of things Italian and historical. And Florence, right, is the Renaissance, right? But why does the Renaissance happen? Because the Medici were in charge and they were bankers. Okay? The money was there, right? And the arts, on the top of the ziggurat, at the top of the step pyramid, the arts happen if everything else is working. We don't have arts, right? Well, why don't we? If you think we should. We don't need any of that. Okay, well, it's a whole other discussion. But assuming you're on board and you're like, yeah, deal with wealth disparity in this country. right? Let's deal with that so that there is a middle class and that people can make a living and not know everyone doesn't have to be where everybody has to have, 2 gigs in the family because it's just not a way to make enough. If you start to do that and you start to put money into education, you start to put money in arts education, and you really push it, you could start to claw back some lost generations. Now, I want to be clear about something else because now it's crossing my mind. I just had a birthday and I just turned 60. So I've been around a bit. I've seen some things and I see recurring patterns, right? But I don't want to sound, because I don't believe it. I would not say, people sit there and go, oh, you're knocking young people because young people aren't checking out the ballet and the opera and the art and the jazz and the thing. I'm actually not. I'm not knocking them at all. In fact, I feel bad for them because they haven't had the opportunity to really check it out. You go, well, it's all there. It's all the interest. It doesn't work that way. It's not being pushed towards them, and they're not getting it when they're young enough so that they're exposed to this on a consistent basis so that they can start to appreciate it so it becomes part of their lives, right? So I'm not blaming them or the millennials before them. A lot of them, they didn't have it in their lives. We've gone several generations now. Who do you want to blame? Well, I'm Gen X. You want to blame Gen X? I think you can blame Gen X to a degree, but because Gen X has been asleep. But also Gen X has not been really that much in charge of stuff. But you could put some blame there, but you could put some blame also on the boomers and the folks even before them, who, rather than being good stewards of the society, really only cared about themselves and said, yeah, you guys are on your own, and sopped up all the money, grabbed everything they could for themselves, and then bankrupted future generations to a degree. And because of that, we've had this slide that I've been seeing my whole life. So I'm not blaming, those darn young people. Not at all. I'm a big fan of young people. Young people are just as bright and just as talented, just as gifted today as anything I've seen before. Human beings do not change from what I've seen at the core. But you've got 1 or 2 lost, maybe more, lost generations at this point when it comes to a cultural literacy. You've got to fix what's going on economically in the country. You've got to work education. Look, my dad was a teacher, and I knew a lot of teachers growing up. And I've met some teachers today. There are some very good ones. There's too large a percentage of ones that you go, I can't believe these people are in a classroom. They don't belong there. They're horrid. They weren't well educated themselves, and now they're teachers. Oh, boy. So we need to improve all of that. We need to get kids to see, be exposed to the opera and the ballet and classical music and jazz and all of that. All the good art we can for years. And then if we can do that, you'll start to see a degree of cultural literacy. It's going to take a long time. But it took a long time to get us in this mess. So, and I don't know if we will pull out of it really anytime soon. Because the people who will be in charge, so again, it's going to take almost a renaissance. It will take someone's going to have to rediscover it. It's going to have to start to get cool again. People are going to start finding it. It will probably happen at some point. I hope I live long enough to see it. I would like to see that. I would be very happy about that if we can turn these things around. I imagine we will. History tends to work that way. So let's recap. Chalamet said some stuff. Got a lot of people upset, but I think people misread it. Again, I'm not a fan of him, and I'm not a fan of, per se. Again, I think it wasn't terribly well expressed. People sit there and go, oh, he sounded like such a bore, and he's so sure. Well, look, if you think he's a bit much, and he's a little full of himself, and he thinks he's a really, really important person, again, it's why I don't like him particularly. I think he is full of himself. I think he thinks he's very important, and that rubs people all the wrong way. The people being rubbed the wrong way seem to have the same issue. They seem very full of themselves too. Oh, okay. So we got full of people who were full of it, angry at other people who were full of it. But the argument I was hearing by these supposedly very together artsy folks in their high tower, those were not winning arguments. Struck me as factually, they were deeply flawed arguments. Oh. So we have somebody who said something who is not a sympathetic character to me, but essentially what he said is not only true, it's been true for a long time, been true my whole life. Okay, so there wasn't anything that wrong with what he said. But the reaction was poor. Maybe arguably worse than the reaction was worse than what Chalamet said in the first place. Definitely. At least what Chalamet said, there was something factual behind that. And if people, I'm sure, will come at me and go, no, these forms have great power. And to who? What percentage of people? Right? This is not the point of the spear in the culture is not, all I think about is the ballet and opera, how it's changed my life. Is that what's going on in the world? Is that happening all the time? Have you ever seen it happen? It's not. Now, it's wonderful if you can get there, and I encourage people to, because they are spectacular. It's like great reading and great novels. Yes, we want to get to a point where you're exposed to this stuff and you love it and you get it, and wow, it's fantastic, and it's great. For the culturally literate, oh my God, it's the elixir of the gods, right? And we would love to have that for more of the culture. But to make believe yes, it's being performed, but how many people actually see it? It's tiny. Most people have never seen it. And even if they did, they wouldn't understand it. It wouldn't hit them. Right? So it's not a good sign when you have to educate the people a ton before they can even dig the thing. It's probably a bad sign for the thing or its relevancy. So they are great forms. I love them and I revere them, but I don't make believe they're popular. I don't believe they're having great impact when they're not. Right? Don't lie to yourself. We've got to be better than that. We've got to be honest about that. And sit there and go, okay, where's the solution? You can see what the solution is. There is a solution. It does involve the world of politics. There's your solution. That's how we fix it. Get involved in that part of the world to the degree that you can. Do what you can. And it means voting, and it means what you buy. The greatest form of voting, besides voting, is voting with the power of the purse. Support these things, buy these things. If you do that, and more of us do, and reject the crap, and reject the slop, and reject the doom scroll, and reject, right? Everything has its place, including YouTube and all that. It can be great, but there's also a lot of crap here, right? You got to reject the dumb and go for the smart stuff. You got to. If we do that en masse, and that's what it will require. But while we're waiting for en masse, individuals just have to do it themselves. Say, I will support the good stuff out there. I will not support the bad stuff out there. We have to do it. I have to try to turn other people on. But it's not going to happen by tut-tutting people and putting them down about how they're so dumb for liking whatever it is they like. It speaks to them. Okay. Now, would we like to raise the level of the conversation so that different things also speak to them? Sure. And if you haven't listened to any of that stuff, or you haven't been, none of the high art talks to you, and you go, yeah, but Dave, I don't get it. I will submit this to you, that most of the good stuff doesn't hit you right away. And that's usually how you know it's good stuff. So I'm going to give you a couple suggestions. Get the Miles Davis album, Kinda Blue, and play it in your house or in the car or wherever without really listening to it and without real judgment for about 3 weeks at least, maybe a month. Just make it part of your life. Have it playing. Instead of the doom scroll, on goes So What by, the first tune on Kinda Blue. Just have it playing all the time. You go eat, time to eat, you're going to eat in your house, put on the tunes. Just have it playing all the time. You're cooking, put on the tunes. Just have it in your life for a while. I'll give you another one. Ravel Piano Works. Easy to find, fantastic recording on every platform known to man, right? You can find anything. Complete Piano Works by Maurice Ravel. Great. Find one. They're all going to be fine. All of those piano players are going to be insane. Great. Get a recording, play it, listen to it for a month. At the end of the month of listening to either of those, you're allowed to think about whether you like it or not. I would say there's an 8 in 10 chance, maybe higher, that at the end of that month you go, I can't live without this. This is gorgeous. I love this. Where do I get more? They're great gateway drugs to the arts. If you could start to have it in one place. I remember listening to Ravel and Debussy and, going crazy and then discovering French Impressionism, not the music, but the paintings. And suddenly I got the connection. Visual art that had not made sense to me suddenly made sense to me. It doesn't matter which of these things you find. If you find one of them, it'll start to connect you up to the other stuff. But you don't try to take some huge bite and stretch your mouth out. I'm going to eat it all. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen quickly. This is good stuff. Good stuff takes time. This is a good meal takes time. Let it take time. Let it take time. Make it you have to tell anybody you're even doing it. It's a personal project just inside the dome, inside here. Just for you. You're going to check this out for a little while. You do. I think in a month you'll sit there and go, okay, I need a little bit more of this. And down you shall go. And you will go down that rabbit hole. It'll be good for you. Do it. You'll find that a lot of stuff that you've liked in the popular world either borrowed from this stuff at any rate, or you'll already see connections to stuff you like and go, yeah, weren't some of these people who I already like? Yes, they were. Now you're just getting a slightly more deeper form of it. And that's only the surface level. Let's keep going. So do that. So Chalamet, okay, not my favorite guy, poorly expressed, but not untrue. Reaction of the art crowd, not even factually correct, bad, full of themselves. Talk about not being good stewards. So that wasn't a good response. And tutting the people, that's never a good response. People tend to get it right, assuming they have an honest chance to check stuff out. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I think there was a lot more going on there. Because the fact that all this tells you there was a lot more going on there, that's fine. There was a lot. It touched a nerve. And Chalamet ends up looking like not so great. But, that's okay. I'm not crazy about Chalamet. But our people need to... we need to get it out to people, and we're not going to get it out to people by doing special concerts and special things. No, we've got to be involved in the politics of all this, getting the right people elected, trying to turn around our educational system, and then trying to get arts funding. There's a lot of steps. No easy answer. I want an easy answer. Well, it ain't one. So get over yourself. That's how you get it turned around, I think. Now, again, just one man's opinion. This is just the way I'm seeing it. I don't think just because it's obvious to me that it should be obvious to everyone else. I don't. All right? And going back, there's a little bit of Schopenhauer here. I I can't fix it. I'm not trying to fix it. The world's got to fix itself. I'm at a distance. I'm Obi-Wan. My goal in these years, this insanity we're living, is very much to be Obi-Wan. I'm not going to go out and fix it. It's going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot of folks to push really hard. We're not certainly not going to get it from the political forces we have now. Something different is going to have to come along. And something different coming along, pushing us in a very, very different direction would be good for the arts and the things that I care about. And I think deep down, on some level, Chalamet cares about too, as poorly as he expressed it, and obviously the arts organizations care about. We do want to make all that a part of our world, more a part of our world, so it does have effect, and the great authorship of the past actually is relevant again, which it should be. You guys take care. I'll talk to you soon.